Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. We've heard this before, but perhaps not like this, because this is Density3, and this is extreme negative density. Density already did that, but this is the one that kind of refines this in a special way, so that you can make it do a sort of
very strange. For they were watching ponies on the New York Stock Exchange.
leaning out behavior like this. So the reason you're getting density this week is because I ran into somebody on Discord, presumably on one of the Discords that I hang out, asking whether they can use density and compare it to some of their own algorithms and make something out of it, to which the answer, of course, is yes, absolutely, because it's all MIT licensed open source. I'm here to serve. Stuff that I do is stuff that you can use in your own stuff. That's what MIT license means. You don't even have to go to the trouble of getting AI to cheat and strip the licensing from anything, because all that MIT asks of you is that you credit. Here's the thing. I had a version of Density out that was Density2, and that one wasn't completely up to date. I have been really busy lately bringing things up to date. There is a version of Dynamics coming out that is an upgrade over what was in Console X2 and Console H, except for that I have revised it about twice now because I keep being able to make it better. So it hasn't been coming out while I keep doing it over again. There's a version of BezEQ coming out. BezEQ3 is coming out. It's closer to what BezEQ is, but is also still an upgrade over the previous one. And all of these things are going into Console X3. So I've been really busy kind of spinning around doing things over. It should be worth it. But this is an example of something where I needed to do a new version of density for two reasons. One of them is that the negative density wasn't working properly, in the sense that it didn't blend well enough between dry and maximum negative density. And I've been able to upgrade that. Near as I can tell, it looks like it was the polarity was flipped or something in existing versions of density, which you still get to use. If you had a sound and you made something using density in negative settings, you can still use that version and it will still sound the same, because I don't replace stuff with newer versions. But this is a newer version with a newer serial number, basically. Density 3 should get a better sound using this kind of thing. So here is basically dry. Also note that that's not in the middle of the control. You get to use high density values like this. Or pull them back. Or negative density settings. And you can also use this high pass control. Distort that, or cut it back. So that gets you sort of air and space added to things. And you can blend it with dry wet, because that's what high pass is for. So the reason that matters, and this has been the case for all the versions of density, it's the case for this version, even though this one has been upgraded, both with the fix for the polarity thing on negative density settings, but also every version of soft saturation in this is now PurestSaturation, or the starvation version of it, the negative version of it. So the tone of it has also been updated to be in line with recent things. I have a newer version even than that, which is not in this, there's going to be a version of this type of processing coming out called longhand. And that is a completely over-the-top version of generating just a sine out of Taylor series expansions, rather than just using the compiler's version of sine, which is optimized for speed and may not be optimized for everything else. Who can say whether it's going to be perfect? But I'll give you the chance to compare the sound of a regular sine processing, which you can get off of Density, of course, earlier versions of Density, of course, or this upgraded version. This is part of the way there because this is PurestSaturation, which does a sine-style behavior. And it's kind of the same thing, but it doesn't go quite as hard, meaning it's going to be a little more CPU efficient than longhand will be. Longhand will be extremely over the top. This, not being extremely over the top, means you can do stuff like this. Here is high pass, giving just highs, and then you can use dry web to sort of balance those things. Or you could do kind of the opposite and boost things like crazy.
Is on the New York Stock Exchange. People, they all join their hands and they set up a chant. And Discord.
And what that is simply extreme density, extreme saturation, but we're high passing going into it so hard that it doesn't sound wildly distorted. Then we balance that using dry wet, and we treat it as a high mids boost. And that's a way of getting a lot of impact out of things. If this is the way you need to get some boost and extra energy out of your sounds. And of course, if you sweep high pass down, it becomes incredibly distorted. Because that's just how that rolls. That's Density for you. The upgrade, and again, this is coming out because I had somebody come and ask if they can use this code. And of course you can use this code, but I had to tell them, yeah, the version that is coming out is Density3, and that's on my GitHub. So you can also audition that, but it didn't have a plugin ready for them to just load up and try out Density and Density2 and Density3 and compare those against their own algorithm and see what they like best and use whatever it is that works out best for them. So now you've got some extra variations. You're welcome. And you get to use all of that in your own stuff because it's MIT licensed open source. This is for giving people tools that they can use. Ideally, you get something running and then you get to start experimenting with the code, much like I've done for years. And you can put that in or adjust some of the things about it and sort of voice the sound of your algorithms in such a way that it sounds good to you. And that's better than prompting something and saying, make it sound good, because that's not going to work at all. Anywho, there is Density for you. And I will get back to work on all manner of other things, because you have no idea how busy I am this week and likely this upcoming week. And then I'll be able to focus on things. And we're not even talking like these are the notes for things that I have to do coding-wise, not even counting the updates that I have on my reverbs, including K Rockstar that's coming out, and the updates on coming up with Console X3, figuring out how to do things like that. For instance, this note is for me reminding myself that I need to come up with a sort of 5 or possibly 3 position switch for some of these controls. So I need to add that to my GUI algorithm stuff, and ideally in such a way that I can use the tilt concepts that I wrote into the original console, where if you have enough controls in there, you can make them so that they kind of tilt away from you, and the controls on the top are like over your head, and the ones in the bottom, you're looking over them to some extent, and the knobs and dials skew a little bit to balance. And that is not even the thing that I'm most busy with, because I am also doing spring cleaning. I've even gotten a dumpster and I'm clearing stuff out, partly because like the degree to which the cost of everything is ramping up has me scared. So I'm like, if I have to lose my house, I'd like to have it be in a really spiffy condition so that I can get something out of it. So far, it looks like that's not going to happen. So again, we're not in full panic, but in the course of doing that, I'm running around doing all manner of other things that are kind of fun and exciting. Like I'm looking at a bunch of like Planters peanut jars that are full of electronic components, and I've been going through that stuff, working out what I'm going to need first for building stomp boxes. But it's not only stomp boxes I'm interested in. I've got things like this. So this went to microphones that I no longer have because they broke, because I modded them until they were... Actually, these ones I built into the wall, and the course of building them into the wall and then trying to get them out destroyed them. But it was an interesting thing to try. It didn't work, but it was interesting to try. But my notion here is that this is the box that the microphones used to come in, and you can do this. Strip out what was in the box and build like some kind of weird synthesizer in there. It'll be built on like my perf board and stuff, and probably use a lot of AT-Tiny processors because I like doing things that would have the same vibe as your Bastel Castles, and you get to use those things as well. I'm not the only open source person out there. Bastel has their AT-Tiny code out there, and you can make your own strange hybrid things. This would be called Secret Briefcase. Open the briefcase and do weird techno-y kind of things out of there. But I'm also interested in like moving against the tendency of AI diffusion generation of music, which I think is, I don't even like MP3s, so like forget it. There should be lots of ways to make music where you cannot get within a country mile of it doing the AIs. And one of the things I'm probably going to have to do is go and make music again. Like the thing that you heard there was from about more than 10 years ago. I'm working really hard on all the plugins, but I need to find time to get into the studio and make new stuff. And so one of the things that I did was drag a door that I had removed over into a hallway to my kitchen for the purposes of being able to like make sound and sing in this space, which is like my control room. And then the stairs leading up to where drum room and my bedroom is. And then putting the door where I said I'd put it means I can do this. I've got an echo chamber, kind of. So it's not really an echo chamber, but I have access to that right now because I'm still here and I'm still able to pay my bills, just barely, but I'm still able to pay my bills. So I can do that if I want, whether it be clap and fire off those sounds. In fact, I even stuck the microphone that I used to use for the wood stove cam over the winter. I was using that as a PZM tucked into a corner, because all it is it's a little Sennheiser Electret mic. It's like a lavalier mic. And I had that in this very room, in that corner over there. And I just moved it over to the other side of the entranceway in the wall. So now that is dedicated and literally pointing at the same hallway that I was just clapping and making sound in. So I get to fire up a dedicated hallway mic for anything that I choose to do. And I gotta get making some, I can't decide, or I won't have to decide, because I'm going to try to do all of the above. Whether to do like rock style music, which I don't know if anybody cares about that anymore, but I am able to do it the way that people used to do it, and it should sound like as if I was doing it in the 1970s, because that's my target for that kind of stuff. But you get to invent new kinds of music rather than just retread stuff that people were doing in the 1970s just because it sounded cool. Should be able to do new stuff that also sounds cool. And for that reason, I'm real interested in exploring some genres that are based on computers and based on machines, and seeing if I can do a version of them that's not. Because I have my soft clock. That's come out quite recently, the current version of it. And I'm real interested in using my Blicky Light synthesizer things and that kind of stuff to see whether I could do, like, I'm probably going to call it bike trance or something along those lines. I don't even necessarily want to call it techno, because kind of the point is it's not, but it should be possible to like play a hi-hat for a hi-hat part. Either hit something acoustic, I might have to build something acoustic that'll work. If so, you'll get samples of it. In order to make a kick drum that acts like a trance kick drum, but is an acoustic sound. And I ought to be able to do something like that, whether it involves building a physical drum for doing it, or triggering some kind of electronic noise, or building my own circuit for an electronic noise. I've still got those little tiny aluminum boxes where if you put a piezo in there, and I have a bunch of piezos that I could make and sell for people, and then tap the top of the box, you get a thumping trigger noise. And I should be able to turn that into synthetic noises as well with plugins. So I've got a lot to do. I will get back to work. This week, I also just turned 58. So I just had a birthday just the other day. And I could use the Beatles recording for the Forbidden Music track. Thing is, on the day that I was born, the Beatles were recording Don't Pass Me By, Ringo song on the White Album. That's not my favorite Beatles song, honestly. It is not my choice. If I could have made my mom like hurry or wait a little bit in order to not be born while they were recording that song, perhaps I would, but that was not within my range of abilities at the time, or now for that matter. And so what I've done is instead the Forbidden Music track this week is Everybody's Got Something to Hide But Me and My Monkey, also by the Beatles, also off the White Album. And that shows a pretty neat picture on the meter. For the upcoming version of console, I'm probably going to revert to the original design of meter, the one with the white background, and just put in a switch so that you can switch between peaks and slews and zero crosses. Maybe do some adjustments, maybe not even that. But I'm thinking the original form of meter was doing a better job in some things that I'm looking for it to do. The one that is for patrons at $10 and up, which I do a special one just for folks like that. And these days, I really appreciate your help with that stuff, because if this keeps up, I'll be able to continue to live here and continue to do my work. And maybe even once I've finished with the cleaning of the house and dealing with the spring cleaning stuff, I'll even get to rest a little bit. But this time, the special $10 and up patron piece of music for which you get to hear all of it because it's not the forbidden music anymore, is Burial. I wanted to include something that was not from the White Album, not from the 1960s, but was actually modern stuff. And the thing about Burial's track Pirates is it scores really high on Airwindows meter. And it shows you how a lot of those sounds are made, how a lot of that stuff works out. You can see where it shows up, where the sounds and things show up in meter, where the low frequency stuff sits, how loud the high frequency stuff is, how it all balances, and what kinds of things go to that balance between peak energy and slew energy that gives rise to those blue dots on the meter of intense sonority and ear-catching stuff. So I will get busy making some videos on those types of things, and I'll get back to my plugin making and cleaning, and I hope you enjoy the Density3, because Density3 is the thing that you get for free as an open source plugin that you get to use the code of and everything this week. I'll be back next week with more. Bye-bye.